All right, we will begin Chapter 9 that is dealing with percents, and Section 9.1 deals with percents and fractions. The word percent literally means per 100 or over 100. So we're going to go ahead and write that down right now as our first vocab word. So percent literally means per 100 or over 100. When you think a word like cent, there's 100 pennies in a dollar. Century, there's 100 years in a century. And so how we go about turning a percent into a fraction is just to take that percent and put it over 100 as the word indicates. So for 19%, we would take 19 and put it over 100. Now with all fractions, you want to make sure you reduce, but in this case, there is nothing to reduce. All right. And so same thing with 60%. You would take 60 and put it over 100. Now in this case, obviously, you could reduce. So if you could find the greatest common factor, you could reduce it in one step. If not, you could go about going 6 over 10 or something like that. And then, of course, that would still not be reduced all the way, so you could put a 2 into the 6, and you would end up with 3/5. And so that would be 60% as a fraction. Again, we do the same thing with 55%. 55 over 100. And again, 5 can go into 55 11 times. 5 can go into 100 20 times, and that would be as far as we could go as far as reducing it. So that is all there is as far as going from a percent to a fraction. Now, the other way around, and we'll start off easy here, is to get a fraction as a percent, we need a fraction that has a denominator of 100, because percent, if we remember, means over 100. So I've given you some numbers that easily go into 100, and so again, we need a denominator of over, there's that line, over 100. All right, so we need to ask ourselves 5 times what number gets us to 100? Well, in this case, it would be 20. And whatever you do to the top, you have to do, or I'm sorry, the bottom, you have to do to the top. All right, and so you would now have 40 over 100, which literally we can rewrite as 40%. So again, we want a denominator of 100. So same thing for 3/10. Again, we want to turn 3/10 into a fraction that has a denominator over 100, because that's what percent means. And so we ask ourselves 10 times what number gets us to 100? 10 times 10, of course, that would be whatever you do to the bottom, got to do the top, and so you would get 30 over 100, or 30%. Again, hopefully you're kind of getting the idea. 1 over 50. Again, denominator of 100. 50 times 2. 1 times 2. And you would get 2 over 100, which equals 2%. Now, when we want to find 20% of 40, basically what you would need to do is turn the percent into something we can use. Percentages we don't normally use when we're trying to do an operation. So in this case, we would want to go ahead, since we're talking about fractions and percents, of turn 20% into a fraction. And if you remember from some of our story problems, the word of means multiplication. So when we're talking about 20% of 40, we're basically saying 20% times 40. So again, we could turn 20 into a fraction, which could equal 1/5 if you reduce it all the way down. and multiply it by 40 over 1. And of course 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 48 times, and our answer would be 8 is 20% of the way to 40 is kind of how you would look at that. So if 8 over 40 would be 20%. So same thing here, 70% of 900, again, that of means multiplication. So again, we would turn 70% into 70 over 100, which really equals 7/10 times 900 over 1. And we can have 10 go into 10 once, 10 go into 900 90 times. You'd have to do a little multiplication of 90 times 7, which would be 630. So again, turn the percent into a fraction. That of means multiply, and you multiply it by the number. Now, percents are one of the most useful things in the real world. So we talk about tips, you would need to know percent, something on sale, something if marked up, sales tax, to figure out how much tax you have to pay on things, you need to know percentages. So this will be kind of a very useful topic here. So if you were looking at 24% of tennis rackets in a sporting goods store costs $50 or more, what percent costs less than $50? So we want to figure out first, we have 24% cost 50 or more. So what percent costs less than 50? So basically, if 24% cost more than $50, there's actually not a whole lot of math to do here. We just need to know how many percents we can have. So 24% costs more than $50. Everything has to add up to 100 when you're talking about percentages. So if 24% costs more than 50%, that must mean that 76% must cost less than $50, because that would add up to 100%, which was our original goal. So you're going to have some story problems potentially in your homework, and you're going to find a lot of useful ways to use percentages as we go about doing this chapter all about percents.